Board, Andrew. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us at the Jeffreys Point Neighborhood Association August monthly meeting. As you just saw from the announcement, this meeting is being recorded. The recording is hosted on YouTube, but is only available on our website, www.jeffreyspoint.org. To participate in this meeting, you are not required to have your camera on. You are not required to have your name be displayed, and you do not have to have your voice recorded either. You can submit questions through the chat. We are glad to have you here this evening. My name is Margaret Farmer, and I am co-chair of the Jeffreys Point Neighborhood Association. Tyler?
Hi, everyone. My name is Tyler Lane, and I am the other co-chair of the Jeffreys Point Neighborhood Association. And I'll go to, I guess, Andrew next.
I can figure out how to unmute myself. I'm Andrew Pike. I'm the treasurer of the Jeffreys Point Neighborhood Association. And then Joanna.
Hi, I'm Joanna Cook. I am the secretary. Nice to see you. And Aubrey.
Hi, and I'm Aubrey Hartnett. I am the vice chair of the JPNA.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, everyone. We have some quick announcements. We'd like to thank everyone who attended our JPNA potluck in July. We had approximately 100 people throughout the course of the evening. We'd like to also thank everyone who supported our raffle. It is our main fundraiser for the year, and we raised almost $2,500, which covers all of our costs for the entire year, and is going to enable us to hold more events. So we are very grateful to everyone. If you won a raffle item and received notice if you received notice that you won a raffle item, you should have also received contact from Andrew, who's coordinating the drop-offs. If you haven't had a chance to collect your item, please reach out to him and we will make sure you get it.
Sorry, I forgot to mention to the board that all of the people should have received them by now. I either mailed them, dropped them off, or something. So if you have not strangely received it, please do let me know.
Okay. Thank you, Andrew. We had quite a few items this year. Everyone did a great job collecting things and getting donations. So it was quite the job to get everything distributed. So thank you very much, Andrew. We really appreciate it. Some local events. Suffolk Downs is holding events every Thursday. We encourage you to check their website to see what's going on. It's a mix of live music and other gatherings. This Saturday is a great day in East Boston as the Eastie Pride is going on at Pierce Park in the morning and early afternoon. And in the afternoon and into the evening, there's the Haines Street Block Party, which is a great time. Later on this month, on Saturday, August 23rd, the city of Boston is hosting a family bike day at the Stadium Park. Registration is requested. And when you do register, they can provide you with additional information. There is a rain date of August 24th. To register, you can find registration and times on the boston.gov website. We were recently notified by a local artist, June Krasinski Rudder, that she's looking for local stories to weave into a public art installation that will be shared at the ICA watershed in November. If you're interested, please contact June Krasinski Rudder. And if you don't know how to get a hold of her, let us know and we are happy to connect you. It sounds like it's going to be really exciting, and we will share more as we get closer about the event itself. A reminder that the deadline to register to vote in the preliminary election is August 30th. The preliminary election is coming up on September 9th. We encourage everyone to participate and vote. It is your right, and your vote is important. Just a quick reminder that just a few years ago, an election here in Boston was decided by less than a dozen votes. So you could be the person who decides how an election goes here in the city of Boston. Also a reminder that the city of Boston is looking for poll workers. They're looking for poll workers for special election days and also primary and general election days. You are not required to work all election days. You can choose. If you are interested but not sure if you want to do this, our board member, Joanna Cook, who is here this evening, currently works as a poll worker and is available to answer any questions. And she says it's a great experience. So if you're interested or retired or looking or might be interested, we encourage you to look into it. Just as an FYI, we will be holding a planning and zoning meeting this month. It is scheduled for Wednesday, August 20th at 7 p.m. on Zoom. We will be posting the agenda later on this week, and you will receive an email if you are signed onto our listserv. Those are the announcements we have for this week. We'll be moving on and starting the meeting as we do normally with our local police, community liaison officers, where we really appreciate having you here this evening. I believe I saw Sergeant Santolo and Officer Hugh Alvarez. Did I see them both?
Yep. Hi, everybody. Captain
go.
is also on board tonight. Hugo's gonna give you the quick rundown. I have some stats for you, and the captain's gonna talk briefly on the blue line. So Hugo, you want to go? Captain, you want to say something first, or you want Hugo to go?
Yeah, Joe, it's all right. You can let Hugo go first. I was just basically going to touch on, just let everybody know that the blue line closure is ongoing right now, and it's going to affect some traffic a little bit up towards the Heights for those that didn't know. Other than that, you guys run with what you need to run with, and we'll get to any questions at the end.
All right, Hugo, take it away.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I have a few incidents to update you guys that took place in the Maverick Square area, right next to the Jeffries Point. So on Tuesday, August 5th, members of the Drug Control Unit, while monitoring the Maverick Square area for legal activity, observed a known user that is also known to have many warrants. They were able to approach him without any incident, and he was arrested and transported. On August 6th, around 11:30, radio call came in for a motor vehicle accident at Emmons and Chelsea, where a large truck had gone into the building. Officer responded, and he observed a man, the male operator, trapped inside the vehicle. He immediately went into action, trying to assist him in getting out of the vehicle by attempting to break the windshield. Within seconds, fire department arrived. They were able to extract him from the rear, and he was transported to the hospital, and this is still under investigation. We have on August 7th, around 8:15, we have an armed robbery. Young male reports that while crossing the overpass on over Visconti Road connecting to Porter Street, he was approached from the rear and by three men, and one of them pulls a knife. They begin to stomp him and to punch him around. They robbed him of his backpack where he has personal belongings. This is still under investigation. On August 7th, around 8 o'clock, radio call came in for robbery and assault in progress out of the 7-Eleven on Maverick Square. Officer responded and spoke to the clerk, and he states that while attempting to stop a suspect from leaving the store without paying for several items, the male suspect punched him with a closed fist on the chin, and then ran towards Maverick T station. We have another arrest that it was done by the Drug Control Unit, and this was on August 8th. The arrest took place on 123 Sumner by Lewis Mall. Officers were monitoring the area and observed another male, also known to them to have numerous warrants. He was also arrested and taken into custody. And that's all I have for today. Just don't forget that the scams is still around. Packages, that's something that we have to always be worried about. That's all I have.
Okay. Okay, everybody. Go very quick. So, with the help of the brick, her name is Rebecca Gavel. She had me. I had her pull some stats for us, and this is from July 1st until today. We'll talk about incidents that happened in Jeffries Point as opposed to other areas of East Boston. So major crimes, we've had 2 as opposed to 71. 4 arrests. The rest of East Boston had 43. Quality of life incidents, which is your, disturbances, public intoxication, noise, parties. 23, and the rest of the city has 393. Well, actually, while I have the quality of life issues, so disturbances Jeffries Point at 3, the rest of A7 at 60. 2 fights, the rest of East Boston 24. Fireworks, Jeffries Point reported it 4 times, supposed to 55. No gang stuff. Public intoxication 4 as opposed to 64. Noise complaints 10 as opposed to 131. So again, the total is 23. Rest of East Boston 293. Major crimes really got nothing up there. 1 larceny, 1 residential burglary. So Jeffries Point is doing pretty well. I'll answer questions. Oh, I just want to mention one more thing. The roller hockey tournament is back. It will be going this weekend. We go down there. We're going to make sure they don't park at the corners. All the safety issues we'll address with them. It's under new management this year, so we're going to have long conversations. And I'll answer any questions, but I think Captain Bickerton wants to go.
No, Joe, I'm all set. Like I said, I just wanted to bring up the blue line closure and the fact that, like you said, we set out barriers, we designate areas that they can't park in, and basically just set the tone right out of the gate. The roller hockey tournament will take place Saturday and Sunday, and as most people know, it's pretty much an all-day event. But with new management, we'll have to spend some time with them, talking with them on Saturday morning. I know Joe's already had some conversations with some of the people that are taking it over. So we'll see how that goes, and we're going to hope for the best. And it's been relatively uneventful the last couple of years, but let's hope that it stays that way, and we'll have a presence down there also. Any questions?
There are no questions in the chat. I did want to bring something up. We're continuing to have a problem with people on trying to use the right term, because there's a couple different problems. Both the e-scooters and the like a I guess like a Vespa, kind of like motorbike, go riding on the sidewalk, specifically on Sumner Street. I literally almost got taken out coming out of my office the other day with some guy going like 20 miles an hour the wrong way down the sidewalk on a Vespa. Not even like, I'm not talking like an electric scooter. This is a gas powered. And he also, it's the same guy. It looks like the same guy. He's constantly going down Sumner Street the wrong way, between Cottage Street and Orleans Street. It's not just one person. There's multiple people doing it, and I'm just wondering what Boston Police in general, because I know this isn't just an East Boston problem, what's being done to try and curb this problem, because it's a problem on our sidewalks. It's a problem on the streets. They don't stop at intersections. It's getting really bad.
Yeah, for the citywide, like I said, the citywide, it is an issue, especially the gas-powered ones. The gas-powered ones, we have more regulation over. As far as like the e-bike ones, the laws just haven't really caught up to what, like how fast we're tracking with innovation. So basically, it would fall under the same rules as like a pedal bike. So as far as that goes, we can issue like city ordinance citations. But for the gas-powered ones, there's a lot more we can do with that. If it's a daily thing with the same scooter that's coming up and down the gas-powered one, I can set out my Tango 55, which is the traffic enforcement car, put him down there, and if he's in that area, he can scoop him up. Do you know what color the scooter is?
It's black with like a black basket on the back.
Okay. Is he like one of the delivery drivers, like an Uber Eats or something?
I think so. I think he may be somehow associated with the barber shop that's on the corner of Sumner and Cottage. He seems to be there quite a bit. So I don't know if he's there or if he's a delivery driver, but he's always on the sidewalk, always.
Yeah, no, I'll send somebody up to address that, especially if we know that he's up by the barber shop.
Yeah.
We have a little bit more teeth. The city council was recently trying to pass some ordinance related to holding the like the Uber Eats type people accountable, the company itself. So we have a little bit more leverage with that. So we'll definitely take a look into it. I'll have the traffic officer up there. Is it mostly in the afternoon, mornings?
Afternoon. I'd say after. I mean, I'm typically in my office in the afternoon, so I don't know if it happens in the morning, but in the afternoon, definitely, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think deployment wise, what time would be the best time to try to grab?
I have some cameras in my office too, so I'll try. Next time it happens, I'll try and see if I can pull something, and I'll send it to Sergeant Santolo if it's anything worth looking at. So
no, that's perfect. Yeah, well, no, we'll definitely deal with it.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Andrew, I'm taking all notes down here. What I do is I'll fire off an email to all the bosses, and they'll say that roll call is what we're looking for in the times and days. So we'll be on it.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any questions?
No other questions.
I did want to say thank you for letting us know about the roller hockey tournament. We'll post online and encourage people to park elsewhere.
Okay.
It is a great community event. You know, I understand there's some people who like feel that we, you know, kind of bump up against it, but I mean, that space is meant to be used as a roller hockey space. So
Right.
I'm glad that they're using it for the space for what it's intended.
Yeah, and they work with us. The captain and I have been down there the last few years, and hey, you can't park here. They start with the double parking. We immediately stop it because, you know, God forbid we need an ambulance or fire truck to go down there. So everything we ask them, Mark Boudelier, who ran it in the past, who's not, it's pretty good. He'd walk around and make sure everyone was about, you know, parked in bad spots. As the DJ gets right on the mic and we get the cars moved. So we do what we can. We'll be there all day also.
Yeah. I mean, the best thing is to encourage them to park in the shipyard and then walk over. So
Oh, they can rollerblade over.
yeah, they can do that too. They can absolutely do that too. But yes, absolutely. We appreciate you being here every month. Just a quick reminder, the police station A7 has a container in their lobby that you can dispose of medications in pill bottles. We're still working on getting a Sharps container here in East Boston, but please do not throw things into the trash. Do not throw them down the sink. Do not throw them in the toilet. They can affect our water. So please take advantage of that service. There are other services that the police offer as well that they can take care of things for us, but that's one. I try to remind people of one every month, so that's the one that people are getting reminded of this month. But thank you for being here. And one last check. Is there anything that came up in the chat? Because there always seems to be one that comes up late. Nope. Okay. Well, thank you for being here. And we look forward to seeing you this weekend, either at East Pride or at the roller hockey tournament.
Yep, definitely. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for being here. I don't see him, but I do want to say it out loud. Does anybody see the mayor's liaison, Roberto Gomez? I don't see him, but I don't want to skip him if he happens to be here and I just don't see him. No? Okay. In that case, we will move on to the next item on our agenda. This evening, we're joined by Jack Halverson from the city of Boston. He's presenting on information about the groundwater conservation overlay district. They are having we're not spending an incredible amount of time. We are getting a presentation, but they are having an additional meeting later on this month. So if there are questions or things we don't get to this evening, we certainly welcome you to attend that meeting as well. But we do appreciate, Jack, you being here this evening, going into some detail and letting us know what's going on.
Awesome. Thank you, Margaret. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me here tonight. My name is Jack Halverson, and I'm a zoning reform planner with the planning department. I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen. Please just let me know if you can't see this. I'm also joined here tonight by Christian Simonelli. He's the executive director of the Boston Groundwater Trust, who will be able to help answer any questions that I can't. So the planning department, along with the Boston Groundwater Trust, is proposing some updates to the Groundwater Conservation Overlay District, or GCOD, as we call it. And we wanted to let you know, to join you all just to talk more about these proposed changes. I don't have too much time, so I'll be going through the slides pretty quickly. Some of the terms are kind of wonky also, as it always is with zoning work. So really appreciate any clarifying questions that you have about the work too. There is a bunch of information on our website, though, in addition, that I encourage you all to look out if you have time, as well as the public meeting that we're hosting next Tuesday night. That's virtual, 6 to 7:30, and all the registration info is online there too. So GCOD is a zoning mechanism that helps prevent the deterioration and promotes the restoration of groundwater levels in Boston. This is applicable in parts of the city where there's filled land that was previously water, which, as we all know, much of East Boston is. So when groundwater levels get too low, some of the structures that are built on old wood piles can become jeopardized and make buildings unsafe. GCOD tries to mitigate those kinds of impacts. GCOD also reduces surface water runoff and water pollution. So Article 32 is the zoning article that has regulations for GCOD. Only some types of projects are subject to these regulations, and I'll go over each of those in just a minute. For projects that are subject to GCOD, they must certify that there aren't any sort of negative impacts on groundwater levels, and they have to incorporate a groundwater recharge system to capture more water on the project site, wherever that's located. These projects are all reviewed right now by the Boston Water and Sewer Commission, BWSC, the Groundwater Trust, and then they must ultimately get approved by the Zoning Board of Appeal. So these are the four kinds of projects. The first, dig down. These are projects that excavate to a certain level into the ground that could be sensitive for these sort of historic wood piles. Lot coverage. These are projects that expand the area of property that's covered by buildings by more than 50 square feet. So thinking of additions onto a home, extending further into the rear yard, something like that. Paving projects, these are any kind of project that includes new or replacement paved surfaces, which obviously sort of impacts how water infiltrates into the ground. And then substantial rehabilitation is the last one. These are significant renovations where the renovation costs more than 50% of the structure's existing value. So these are very substantial kinds of renovations that happen. Compliance with these GCOD regulations is confirmed and reviewed by the BWSC and the Groundwater Trust staff. But it ultimately, like I said before, has to be approved by the Zoning Board of Appeal with a conditional use permit. So there's just some information on these slides about ZBA cases and some takeaways here. Since 2022, there have been about 120 ZBA cases citywide where GCOD is applicable. Of those 120 cases, 47 of them had GCOD as the only zoning violation. So this means that they are going to the ZBA just so that staff from the Groundwater Trust can tell the board whether or not they've complied with the GCOD regulations. There's not, subject matter experts at ISD related to GCOD for this, so we really rely on our colleagues over at BWSC and the Groundwater Trust to certify that these projects are good to go. Interestingly, substantial rehabilitation projects are the vast majority of these cases where GCOD is the only zoning violation. So not significant kind of construction that's changing what a building looks like necessarily, much more about sort of the interior renovation here. So this is what the existing process is for GCOD reviews. It's the standard process for any kind of project that goes to the ZBA. Once a building permit is filed, an ISD plans examiner looks at that project for zoning compliance. And because GCOD requires a conditional use permit, the proponent then has to file an appeal in order to get that conditional use permit. At that point, the BWSC and Groundwater Trust staff review the project for compliance, concurrently to any abutters meetings that are being held or sort of mailed notifications about that site. Then there's a ZBA hearing where the Groundwater Trust staff will tell the ZBA if the project is compliant or not. And then if the project's approved, a building permit gets issued. So we're proposing to keep this exact process in place for three types of projects, the dig down projects, the lot coverage projects, and the paving projects. And sort of the way we're talking about this as we're going through this initiative is just saying that these projects still require conditional use permits. For substantial rehab projects, we're proposing to remove that conditional use permit requirement. So this would mean that these substantial rehabs would not need to go to the ZBA for their final approval. It would operate instead like a typical kind of building permit for something that would just be allowed under zoning. But very importantly, these projects would still be reviewed by the BWSC and the Groundwater Trust for their compliance with the regulations. Also, if a project still has other zoning violations, they do need to go to the ZBA. So this really specifically targets those substantial renovation projects where GCOD is the only zoning violation, which makes up about 30% of those GCOD cases that the ZBA sees. So just to reiterate, here are some things that would not be changing. Projects that are cited for GCOD still have to get their approval letter from the BWSC for their groundwater recharge systems. Projects would also still need to have their no harm letters. These are what certifies that there's no negative impact on groundwater levels. And as always, staff from ISD, BWSC, and the Groundwater Trust would continue to be in collaboration on reviewing these projects for compliance. As the subject matter experts here, their approval is extremely important, and they're the ones that will still be, taking on that kind of work. So here's just a quick timeline for adopting these changes. We released the draft zoning last week and are planning to host a broader public meeting next Tuesday night. And then if there aren't any sort of substantial issues or changes that are raised, we would plan to bring this to the BPDA board in September, and then the Zoning Commission in October for adoption. One thing I didn't mention, so folks have a chance to look at the zoning amendment, you'll notice there's a lot of text that's sort of striked out in red. As with all of our zoning initiatives, we're really trying to cut down on duplicative text in the zoning code. So part of this work is really simplifying the language and making it a lot easier for folks to read. And hopefully that comes through if you take a look at the proposed zoning. So that's about it. Thanks for having us tonight. Christian and I would be more than happy to take any questions that you might have about this.
So we're wondering if we're having a chat issue this evening. Is there anyone that has been attempting to try and put a message in the chat and hasn't been able to do so? If you would just raise your hand using the raise hand function. Oh, okay. I don't know what to do about that. Let me just see here.
Andrew, on my end, this is Christian with the Groundwater Trust. It says that the chat is disabled.
Yeah, and it's weird because we have it set so that we typically set it so that just the
No,
people can only message the host, which
Yep.
is the setting that I have it set at, but for some reason everyone's saying it's disabled. So
now, now it's open.
yeah, I
Cool.
changed it
There we
to
go.
I changed it to everyone. So everyone be polite to each other. I'm gonna leave it like that. Does anyone have any questions they would like to enter into the chat for Jack? Sorry for that.
I would just like to add this again. This is Christian with the Groundwater Trust. That the planning department came to us last year with these proposed changes, and our board reviewed several options, and ultimately this is what we landed on. So this isn't something that we were just working on for the last month or so. We really, in conjunction with the planning department, with ISD, with water and sewer, have really taken the time to come up with what we believe is really the best option. And really what it does is it doesn't hang up people that are coming in for gut rehabs, which has been the real issue here. They're able to move through the process and be able to get their permit and start the work. And it typically would really just affect sort of the smaller types of projects, not necessarily the larger Article 80 projects that move forward are going to be in and have other zoning violations are going to go to Board of Appeals anyways. This is really for somebody who bought a building looking to gut rehab, do it. Somebody that's lived there looking to gut rehab and redo it. And it's really just cutting out a lot of the unnecessary wait time for them.
And then Margaret had asked for the meeting details to be shared, which Jack just shared in the chat. So everybody should be able to see that. So that has the link to the meeting details and also the Zoom registration on the webpage that he just shared in the chat. Any other questions before we move on? I think we're good.
Awesome. Great. Thank you all so much for having us.
Thanks for having us. Thanks very much.
Thank you for being here this evening. Our groundwater is a very important issue, so we really appreciate you sharing. And if anyone's interested, we encourage you to attend the public meeting where you can gather even more information. Next up on our budget, we are joined this evening by Josh Kraft, who is candidate for mayor of the city of Boston. I will let him share more information about his background. To let people know how this is going to go, Josh is going to present for a period of time. Then we will open it up for questions, but we are going to moderate slightly the questions as they come in. More as a way to, and more because if there are 2 or 3 people who submit the same question, we want to make sure that that question has a little bit of priority because clearly that interests people. I do want to remind people that we do have an expectation of behavior of the way that we will treat one another. We will treat each other with respect. Our speakers will treat us with respect, and we will treat our speakers with respect. No one is expected to agree with anyone else. And as a matter of fact, it's rare that we do completely agree with one another. But at the end of the day, we're all neighbors and we're still going to live near one another after this meeting. So I encourage everyone to remember that. And no matter what, at the end of the day, the most important voice that you can have is the one that you use at the ballot box. So with that, I'd like to say thank you very much for joining us here this evening, Josh. And I will turn the floor over to you. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Margaret, and Tyler, and Andrew, and Joanna, and the entire Neighborhood Association, just for the opportunity for me to show up, tell my story, and take questions, and to listen and learn from all of you during the questions. So, as Margaret said, my name's Josh Kraft, and I am a candidate for mayor of Boston. 35 years ago, I made a decision not to go to work in the family business, but instead to do community work. Excuse me. So for 35 years, that's what I've done in and around the neighborhoods of Boston and Chelsea. 30 of those years, I was with Boys and Girls Clubs of Boston. And I started with them in the fall of 1990, working in public housing developments in South Boston, knocking on doors, running a program for kids that were struggling in middle school. Frankly, they just weren't going to school in most cases. And look, as I always say, I grew up on the mean streets of Chestnut Hill. I'm very much aware of that. And I was raised to know that my life was a lot different than others. And I'll get to that at the end. But I remember one apartment I used to go into, and I remember it today as clear as I did in the fall of 1990. This single mom, overwhelmed with life, but also challenged with physical and mental health issues, adult children, young teen girl that I was supporting to try to get her back into school. But just sitting there and being with them, I saw how hard it was. And I thought, good people like this should not fall through the cracks anywhere in our communities. And I remember in that moment making my commitment to, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. And as I said, those first 2 years of 30 years with Boys and Girls Clubs of Boston, I spent running that program. My last 12 or 30 years, I was the president and CEO. And in that time, I got to work with, and most importantly, learn from so many great people, community leaders, donors, of course, most importantly, the 300 staff I got to work with every day, and the kids and families we serve. And in those 12 years as CEO, working with that great group of people, we're able to double the number of kids we serve from 7,000 to 14,000, and more than double the annual budget from 13 million to over $27 million. In addition, after I left Boys and Girls Clubs after 30 years, I continued community work, did a lot of work in the substance use disorder field with the Phoenix, Gavin Foundation, Heron Foundation, as well as in the reentry world. And I'm a firm believer that after the Boston Police Department, a crucial tool in our fight to keep our city and streets safe is a committed and passionate reentry community. And in my 35 years of working in and around the neighborhoods, the greatest gift I have received is the education I got from the many, many hundreds, maybe thousands of people I got to work with and learn from. And they taught me so much, but really the number one thing they taught me is the power of people to come together, form community, and make change for the greater good. And it's all those 35 years of relationships and learning, especially that lesson, that have inspired me to run for mayor of the city. Currently, I feel the city is headed in the wrong direction. And we have an administration that focuses on political ideology more than they focus on all of you, all of us, the residents of Boston. My administration, our administration, will have 5 values that we will lead with: common sense, accountability, accessibility, transparency, and competent fiscal management. And through those 5 core tenets, we'll make housing more affordable and attainable, especially for working families that can't afford to live and raise their kids in the city. We'll improve the schools by educating every student and also re-engaging parents in the BPS world and their child's education. One of the ways we'll do that is we will add back elected members to the appointed school committee of a hybrid school committee. We'll put an end to the human tragedy and quality of life issues that's mass and caste. We'll focus on recovery first. And we'll also, when we focus on recovery first and emphasize recovery first over housing first, we're also going to lean on the state and surrounding municipalities, because all of you are well aware that this is not just a Boston problem, it is a regional problem. And we'll create, within the first 6 months, by working together with the state and community stakeholders, a Boston Recovery Campus that will emphasize recovery first. The second part is the neighborhoods that have impacted, their quality of life issues have been impacted. We're going to work proactively with police. We won't turn a blind eye to people using drugs or sleeping on stoops in public, but we will emphasize services over sentences for them. We'll create, and I know they already have in West Roxbury, a recovery court and mental health courts that can direct these people into the services they need. However, we will only focus on sentences when it comes to drug and human traffickers. Fourth, we will bring back fiscal responsibility and fiscal discipline to City Hall. Last spring, when the administration was pushing for a home rule petition to increase taxes on businesses, they were asked about, do you have any cuts from the city budget? And they said there was not a penny to be cut. I find that that's hard to believe for a budget that's $4.6 billion that had grown more than 20% in 3 years. Not just hard to believe, it's disrespectful to so many residents of the city that make hard fiscal choices in their own lives every single day. In addition, we will return to the city the hallmark of Mayor Menino and Mayor Walsh's administration, city services. Our administration will be neighborhood facing and neighborhood based. It's all about responsiveness to residents and small businesses. I remember when I was running Boys and Girls Clubs of Boston, and our club at the corner of Talbot and Blue Hill Ave, there was rush hour on Talbot Ave. Kids were getting near missed by cars until when they were leaving, the younger kids at rush hour. Unfortunately, one day a little boy was hit by a car. He was okay. I remember the club director called me that night and said, we got to do something. So at the time Mayor Menino was in office, I spoke to Michael Knievy, Mayor Menino's right-hand person. Within 36 hours, we had a crosswalk in front of that building. And that's exactly what the residents, small businesses, and nonprofits of the city deserve from their administration. And I'm happy to say Michael Kniebe, who is a legend with Mayor Menino, has joined our team full time. Second story, we were building the Mattapan Teen Center, investing $5 million onto a private philanthropy into Hazelton Street, the old Mattapan Library. At a community meeting, I was challenged by someone who said, you never use local labor in your project. I approached him after the meeting, we talked. Happy to say 14 months later, when the project was done, 70% of the labor came from Roxbury, Mattapan, and Dorchester. Again, that's what the residents, small businesses, nonprofits of the city deserve from their city leadership. And as I mentioned, our administration will always be neighborhood facing, residents first, and neighborhood based. And in the end, I'd like to share a story from my late mother. As I mentioned at the beginning, I know I grew up on the mean streets of Chestnut Hill, but my mother made sure to tell us every single day, your worst day is most people's best day. So you make sure marginalized and targeted groups always are not only safe, but have access to opportunity, because that's the only way you will build equitable communities in your lifetime. And I can tell you that that will be the culture at our city hall, and that lesson will never leave me. So again, I thank the Jeffreys Point Neighborhood Association for the opportunity just to share. I'm happy to answer some questions, and I thank you so much for the opportunity.
Okay, we only have 3 questions in the chat so far, so I'm going to go ahead and read. Well, no, we just got another one. I'm going to read the first one. Excuse me. East Boston is currently completely unrepresented on the school committee. How, with an elected versus an appointed model, would you work to make sure there is equity and representation?
And I had no idea that East Boston was not represented on the current appointed school committee. And obviously, our vision is a hybrid, appointed and elected members. I'm going to be frank, we haven't fleshed out how the elected members, how that's going to look. But I will make this commitment that if it was, let's just say it was just appointed, I think it's essential to have someone who represents neighborhood interests on the school committee. So whether it's through I guess what I'm trying to say is, if there's gaps through the appointed people, maybe that's how we'll look at the elected when we develop it. And again, I want to be honest, we haven't fleshed out how it looks, but the importance is representation. I just told you we're about neighborhood facing, and I need to be held accountable if we're not. So I will make sure either through the appointed members or the elected, how we flesh out the elected situation, that East Boston will have a voice.
This person, just to recap what the rest of their comment was, she said, I'm sure it's not news that this particular neighborhood faces accessibility and transportation challenges that are not the case in other areas of the city. And with BPS headquartered far from East, irregular meetings and the like can be far out of reach. So that was the main reason for the person's question. So,
And
yeah, I think you covered that.
No, and I've heard that.
It's not just school related. There's other things that are very similar to that. The next one, today's Boston Globe has a letter to the editor discussing the needs for bike lanes and other safe street initiatives. Can you discuss your position on bike lanes and the needs for them in the city of Boston?
Yes, so I am for bike lanes. However, the current situation with bike lanes was done without detailed traffic and movement studies of pedestrians, bikers, and cars. There's no data collected. There was no studies on the impact on small businesses, and neighborhood voices were not included in the final product. So we want to take the time and do that research and then figure out the best places for bike lanes that make sense for the city. In addition, sort of related, is we want to make sure the sidewalks, we've heard a lot of issues on sidewalks from a lot of people. We want to modernize and fix sidewalks across the city. We've heard from seniors and other folks that too many sidewalks are in tough shape. So along with the research on bike lanes, we're going to undertake work on sidewalks. We're also going to institute a pothole response team that's separate from 311.
This person is asking, I'm curious to know more about the idea of a recovery campus. Not so much where it will be located, but what it might look like in action.
So in action, and I know this, when we did our Mass and Cass policy plan, we got a bunch of folks around the table, leaders in the recovery world here in the city, as well as folks with lived experience from out on Mass and Cass, as well as some law enforcement folks. And the Recover Boston campus was actually presented, I think, 3.5 years ago from a group of stakeholders in the New Market Business District. And basically, it is housing, but it's not low threshold housing. You got to be in recovery. There's no use, no substance use inside there. And it focuses on recovery and mental illness first. And then as you move along, we'll start to talk about workforce development and potential housing stability, basics of housing. We think the budget that we came up with was $10 million plus a year. And because of the regional aspect of this, I think there's plenty of places in Greater Boston. In fact, I've spoken to a leader of a neighboring city who has a potential site. And I spoke to him before I was ever running for mayor. And we stay in touch since I started running for mayor. So I don't know if that's in detail. It is based on a model in, I forget the name of the program, in Durham, North Carolina.
Okay. Of the multiple issues facing the city today, which many of which you mentioned, what do you think is the biggest one facing us today? How would you fix it, and how would you assess your success in solving the issue?
I'd say, I think we're in a housing emergency in the city. And yeah, affordable housing, but also middle-class working housing. In a lot of the groups and sessions I've done, listening sessions, that has come up consistently. I work here, I want to raise my kids here, and people can't afford to do it. So a couple of ideas we've had, our policy. And I think there's two issues. The other is Mass and Cass, but I'll go to this one first. We know that there's 26,000 units of permanent housing that can't get built. And they come with $125 million of tax revenue. And I think we want to jumpstart those projects, take the tax revenue. One of the first things we would do with it was create a first-time home buyer program that increases income eligibility to include working families, because a lot of families make too much money to qualify for first-time home buyer programs, but not enough to straight out buy. So we want to increase the eligibility so that more folks can have the opportunity to buy in the city. The second thing, we have a program, we call it opt-in rent control. Again, like our Mass and Cass work, we sat around the table with housing advocates, landlords, developers. And basically the program is as follows. If a landlord opts into the program and keeps their rents at minimal increases over 10 years, they'll get a 20% tax rebate, also partially funded by the tax revenue by jumpstarting the housing projects. And that will keep rents affordable for many folks and also incentivizes landlords to do it. We actually had one of our people around the table owns close to 600 units in the city. They ran the numbers and said they would do the program. So that's that. And then of course I mentioned the Mass and Cass as well. I think just, it's such an issue of humanity. I mean, I walked through the other night, and it's just hard, man. And I think finding support for those folks and also finding relief for the neighborhoods that are impacted by it is really important.
I think another important thing is to remember that Mass and Cass isn't the only place that's affected by that
Yeah.
type of situation. We have our own little Mass and Cass, unfortunately, in Maverick Square sometimes. It would be nice to see some of whatever plan is put in place by whomever is elected to be spread across the city instead of just focusing on one particular area. I know that's the worst one, of course.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it's important. I think it's not fair to residents, but it's not fair to the people struggling.
The next question, nearly 50% of East Boston residents are immigrants. How do you plan to protect residents in the face of increasing ICE presence? How do you plan to interface with the federal and state governments around the very national issue of immigration?
I'm completely against the mass deportation plans of the federal government. When I mentioned at the beginning, 35 years of relationships, so many of those folks were immigrant families. It taught me so much. And I think it's abhorrent that someone could be sitting in their house of worship, their school, their place of work, and be removed with no connection to violent crime at all. And I will stand strong with our immigrant community. I will fight any deportation plans. And frankly, I'd love to figure out how we can fast track folks that have been here doing the right thing for decades, fast track them more efficiently to citizenship.
Okay. This looks like a two-part question. This person first wanted to thank you for running and for your nonprofit work. Said it takes guts to put yourself out there on the ballot. Please reply to both questions here. You have heavily criticized the current administration for using taxpayer money for a Boston stadium, yet your family's proposed stadium project in Everett, which relies on a special legislative carve-out and requires public funds for infrastructure, has been a key point of negotiation between your father's company and the local governments. How do you reconcile your condemnation of a publicly supported stadium for Boston with your family's pursuit of a similar deal that would also use taxpayer funds? I'll read the second part just so you have it because it may be related. Additionally, how do you reconcile your progressive? Nah, it's not really related. Answer the first part.
Got it. All right. So the first part, the stadium, we'll start with Everett and then I'll talk about my feelings on White Stadium. Look, I have nothing to do with the family business. I understand the question and I would recuse myself from all decisions that have to do with the Everett Stadium. I do know the building itself is privately financed. This shows you, I don't know what Everett is providing. I've been removed from it and I will recuse myself based on state ethics laws from any decisions with it. When it comes to White Stadium, here's what my issue is, or here's what I struggle with it. I know that Colley Stadium in Lowell was rebuilt for $8 million. I know the Emerald Necklace Conservancy has a plan for roughly $30 million for White Stadium. So for somewhere between $8 and $30 million, I firmly believe we could rebuild White Stadium for the sole use of BPS kids and the generations of families that have lived around the park that have had access to the park. I know close to 150 trees have been taken down. And to me, that's the issue. We're over $150 million that the city is paying, and the BPS kids and the generations of family that have used the park won't even have access to it 24/7. So I feel like for a fraction of the cost, which we could probably split between private philanthropy and city money, we could have a beautiful stadium that works just for BPS kids and the folks that have used the park for generations.
Okay. Second part to his question was, how do you reconcile your progressive political aspirations for Boston with both you and your family's conservative political donations, including the Kraft family's very public support for Donald Trump?
Yeah, that I've never donated, voted for Donald Trump. I've never sent him a penny. My dad and I agree on many things. We've disagreed on Donald Trump since 2016. And I think, I'll go back to actually my mom and my dad for that matter. Or we'll focus on my mother. The very people that she told me I had to always fight for and look out for are right in Donald Trump's radar. So there's no way I would ever support him or his beliefs or what he does. I think throughout my life, I've done the work for the folks that he is targeting, supported opportunities, access to opportunities for those folks. And I'd be a hypocrite if I was supporting Donald Trump. But I want to say I've never supported him. I've never written a check to him. And I've disagreed with my dad on it. And we've talked about it openly many times.
Okay. I have a follow-up question to this one that's about to come from another listener. Participant. How would the Kraft administration handle enforcement of unsafe parking behaviors that endanger pedestrians? They're going to explain. Drivers that double park while they're running into the store, delivery drivers and mail carriers parking in crosswalks and bus stops, Amazon vans blocking one-way streets entirely, which infuriates me. Would you embrace parking enforcement or embrace the old ways of, oh, come on, it's Boston, it's a tradition to double park and break the rules?
So it's interesting because I've heard that in so many neighborhoods, East Boston, Mattapan Square, Savin Hill. I've heard it pretty consistently, and I think it's working hard with the Boston police to figure, in the traffic department at City Hall to enforce rules and make sure they're followed and enforced.
And how do you plan to do that?
First, getting in and finding out why a lot of that is ignored now, if it's being ignored, and figure out how we can be more responsive to the residents that are impacted by it. Is there a time limit that people go over? Are there special permits that some people get? But it's working hand in hand with the traffic department and the police, and making sure a lot of the parking ordinances are enforced. And in certain situations, why they're not.
And that was going to be my question. So one of my biggest questions to politicians that are running for office in this city are how do you plan to improve basic city services? You talk a lot about the big problems, the big projects, but I think many people in the city are mostly concerned about basic city services that are not happening, especially in this neighborhood. We have almost, I'd say probably 75% of the streets in this neighborhood need to be repaved.
I've noticed that.
I've lived in this neighborhood for 15 years, and I don't think I've ever seen a significant repaving effort being done where it's being done curb to curb. We've got patches, we've got like little sections, but there's not a single street in this neighborhood that's been redone. I've lived here 15 years. I can tell you that there's probably people who've lived here longer that could tell me that it's been even longer than that. And I mean, I think it's unacceptable. I don't understand how a neighborhood is neglected as much as it is over here. Our parking enforcement is sporadic at best. And it's one of those things that people used to be okay with, but now that we have more housing and more people living in this neighborhood, it's become a significant issue. And I think a lot of people are more interested in that than they are in some of the other things that you've been talking about tonight. So how do you plan to improve basic city services?
And I should have, that's why I told the story about the crosswalk and the labor and the people that worked on the program in Mattapan. The number one thing for our administration, again, our number one focus is residents. We are going to be neighborhood facing and neighborhood based. It starts and ends with the residents and their needs. We're going to return city services to what they were under Mayor Menino and Mayor Walsh. We're going to respond. It's going to be our ONS team is not going to be there to check a box. They're going to be there to hear, listen, and learn, and come back. And they're the number one tool for a mayor, because they're coming back and saying, look, these 4 streets over here need to be. That is going to be our number one priority. City services. Our number one priority is residents. And the number one priority for that will be a return to the city services that people are used to in Boston. That's why I said we're going to be neighborhood facing, neighborhood based. Our ONS team is going to be crucial in finding and giving us information that we need to hear. And again, I want to be, our administration starts and ends with me, want to be accessible and accountable for the needs of the residents of the city.
So you brought up ONS. I'm sorry to ask another question of myself, but I think other people would be curious about this as well. Currently, what seems to be happening frequently is that our liaison to the mayor's office the position seems to be a stepping stone to other positions within the city, instead of something where someone is there more consistently. We will have a liaison who's there for a year max, and then we get something new, and it's like starting from scratch. Do you have any plans to make that position more of for lack of a better word, important position, where maybe it's paid more, maybe it's something that people are willing to stay in the position longer?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we're lucky to have Michael Knieve on our team, who ran all that for Mayor Menino, and returning to the way it was under Mayor Menino and later under Mayor Walsh. It starts with making sure that people know those positions are valued positions, and they are going to be the eyes and ears for the entire administration in the neighborhoods. And whether it is increasing salary, or they will have access to myself, the chief of staff, because it is the most important positions. And we're going to hire the right people up, and actually hire the right person to oversee ONS as well. I know now we've heard it's a lot about checking the box. We had the meeting. We want to make sure they come back and say, oh, we had the meeting. 36% of the people were this way, 42 were this way, the other were undecided. We want real information coming back, because that's our eyes and ears. And again, why I told the crosswalk story, that's the response we want to have to everybody. 24 to 36 hours response for city services, for residents, small businesses, and nonprofits.
I would just like to take a moment to respond to that, Josh. Joanna Cook here, Secretary of the Board. And first, I want to say it is a high turnover in the ONS office. It is a high pressure job with a lot of hours on the ground. Our representative right now is turning over his position, and I think a number of folks in the community can sing his praises. He's been incredibly responsive and has done a great job. I'm not going to lie, one of the big concerns I have about you stepping into this office is that you're not, you've lived in Newton for a very long time. You've been out of touch with Boston city life for a very long time. You moved back to the city in 2023, which I appreciate, and we're certainly glad to have you back. But your work did work with unrepresented populations. Your work was also based in Chelsea, which isn't Boston. And so curious to hear about how you feel about how you are going to get real representation from on the ground insight into your office.
Thank you, Joanna, and I completely understand the question. What I've learned, whether I was in Boston or Chelsea, is it's all about showing up. And it's sort of answering Andrew's question here before. Showing up, being accessible, listening. That's what I've done. That's how I've learned so much. And that's how you can understand when you show up, listen, and take the time to understand what people are saying and hear what they're saying. That's how you build community. That's how you build mutual respect. And that's how I learned. I don't have any, I have some answers, but the best way to get answers is to show up, hear community, understand their thoughts, understand their hopes and challenges, and work with them the best you can to solve their issues. And that's how I'll always do it. And it's just about showing up and being there. I firmly believe that. And I'll show up where I'm not supposed to show up, where people don't want me to show up. Done that many times in my life. And I completely respect and understand your question, but I have spent a lot of time in Boston, in neighborhoods, in places where people have said to me they would never expect me to show. I just never talked to them.
This was
Thank
a
Thank
follow.
you.
Sorry, this was a follow-up to something you said earlier. You're talking about housing, but you propose to reduce affordable housing from 20 to 13%. How do you argue that the housing you propose keeps housing affordable for lower and middle income workers?
Well, I know right now, I believe it's 20% of the units in Boston are affordable units, which I think is one of the highest in the country. But look, the biggest issue now is we just aren't getting housing built at that 20% IDP. And even Cambridge reversed course. Look, the only way to end a housing emergency is to create more housing. So with those 26,000 units, I know we would do a third at 60% AMI, a third at 90% AMI, and a third at 120% AMI. Because that would make it more affordable for people to build. In addition, it would create more units, which in the end solves the problem, is the first steps in solving a housing emergency.
This is also a follow-up to the conversation, the topic earlier in regards to the current presidential administration. This person has stated there's a difference between supporting and actively opposing. Trump and his administration have pointedly targeted Boston. Would you take an active stance against this administration?
Definitely. It starts with the mass deportation plan. As I mentioned before, I'll stand with them, protect them. I think the cuts to SNAP, healthcare costs is obscene, and I'd stand up against it, whether it's working with our federal delegation, the state, or private industry. I'll figure out pathways to create funding to get us through the next 3 years.
Okay. This person says, I think there are a number of other substantive questions that could be addressed, keeping people here who want to be here. What is the substantive plan here? I don't know, I can't say that word tonight. What do you mean by city services? It's not just parking and trash collection. It also can kids get to activities, and are there good schools? Can families access food?
Right. So city service, okay, beyond traffic lights, sidewalk repairs, streets, of course, the schools, we have to make them better. I can talk, we want to educate every kid. We're going to increase literacy rates by 10% every year, starting in the lower elementary schools. Going to create long-awaited funding to Madison Park, to capital improvements at Madison Park, while also creating vocational hubs around the city. As I mentioned, with re-engaging parents, adding elected members to the school committee, for the hybrid committee, also reopening the office for parents, so the parents have a number in place they can go to navigate through BPS. Work with all the great community partnerships in the city. When I was running Boys and Girls Club of Boston, we had 200 community partners, including from Mass General Hospital to the Children's Room, which provided mental health counseling for kids that had lost a parent or sibling. I think we got to bring a lot of those community partnerships to bear in the BPS, provide opportunities, access to opportunities for the members. Finally, with the administration, I'd break away operations from the superintendent so the superintendent can focus completely on education and supporting teachers and families. And then create a role, superintendent of operations, or whatever the title is, having someone who could focus on buses, school safety, and so on. And that could be someone without even an education background, someone with an operations background. Those are just a few of the ideas. I know that over the last 10 years, we've lost 8,500 kids from BPS, but we've added 130 jobs. So I'd like to redirect some of that money back to the classroom to have a better impact. So that's for schools. I forget what the other items were.
Well, we do have one more question, so we'll move on to that at this point. This is actually the last question. Many neighborhoods in Boston have incredibly low tree canopy coverage, with East Boston having the lowest at about 9%, leading to the heat island effect in many parts of Boston. The current administration already has an urban forestry plan to plant trees all around the city to combat with the heat island effect, with local nonprofits like Tree Eastie contributing to this mission. Do you plan to build upon the city's efforts of combating the heat island effect prevalent in parts of Boston, especially East Boston?
Yeah, my friends over at Speak for the Trees in Dorchester, I've worked with them for a number of years. Tree Eastie, I'd be love to work with. Yeah, it's essential. Yeah, I definitely would. And I see the importance, no matter where you are, of trees, especially in the city and in neighborhoods.
Excellent. Okay, well, that is the last question. Margaret?
Well,
Oh, sorry, go ahead. Did you have something to say, Josh?
oh no, I think there's another question.
Was there? Oh, sorry. Yep. Somebody sent me a separate question, so that's why I was on a different page there. What is this? Okay. Okay, so this will be the last question. So please don't submit any other questions. We do need to move on after this. You mentioned replacing the public works and transportation teams, but the current administration is implementing AI, LiDAR, computer vision technologies to improve the data behind pavement conditions to bring the city into the 21st century to better maintain streets and sidewalks for years to come. What specifically would you be doing differently other than hiring a former employee who operated and was unwilling to update technology? The Wu administration is working off this old technology and seeking to update it as it was neglected by every other previous administration.
No, I wouldn't want to get rid of the transportation, or what was it, Public Works Department? I don't, we need that.
Replacing the public works and transportation teams. I don't think the departments, I think they're talking about.
Oh, no, I don't know who we'd be replacing. I need to get in and see who is there, but I know that our transportation policy mentions AI on, road improvements and street improvements, as well as some other technical improvements for the city. I know one thing we definitely want to do is return with Eversource utilities when they do work. One of the rules that was years ago, when you tear up a sidewalk or street, you don't return it how you found it, you return it better. We're definitely going to implement that. But I'm not looking to replace. I know those are the folks that do the work. And in our plans, we have AI to update and improve. So.
Okay. Did you have any closing comments?
No, listen, I appreciate every question. I appreciate the time. I appreciate the learning I got. And I hope everyone has a great rest of the summer and stay cool.
Thank you for being here this evening. Mr. Kraft, if we could ask you to put your campaign website in the chat or any other contact information, so that if people wish to learn more about you, they have the ability to look you up and get research you in an accurate way, so they can learn more about you. We would appreciate that. We're happy to make you have access to that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's joshforboston.com. I will do my best to put it in the chat. I'm not great at this, but I'll figure it out. Thank you so much. Everyone stay cool.
Okay, and you're certainly welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting if you'd like to learn more about our community discussion about a dog park. So, oh, I think you got muted there. Sorry.
No, I'll keep it on. It's good for me, but I might turn off the camera because I got to do some writing here, but thank you.
No
Again,
problem.
Have a great night and I appreciate you.
Thank you. I know that was our main event this evening, but we are not done. We are going to have a topic that's going to be introduced and run by Tyler Lane, who is our other co-chair. I know that dog parks have long been an issue here in Jeffries Point. And there have been some discussions online. So Tyler wanted to head up a discussion, giving some background information, giving some, and also collecting some opinions and information from people here. Although I know that a lot of people came to see Josh in particular, we do hope that you will stay and participate in the discussion. So Tyler, I will turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Margaret. And thank you again, Josh, for coming and spending some time with us. It's always nice to see candidate participation in these kinds of forums. So that's definitely appreciated by all of us here. Yeah, I just wanted to sort of start an ongoing conversation around dogs and dog parks in the neighborhood. I'm sure most of the folks on this, although perhaps not all, are participants in our Facebook forum. And have certainly seen the ongoing issues and some that came up kind of to a head more recently regarding dogs and where dogs can be, where they can't be in the neighborhood and things like that. And I figured this might be good to sort of kickstart a larger conversation about dogs in the neighborhood. Just to state, and I believe I can speak for the board here. It's our certain position, it's our definite position that we want everybody, dog owners, to obey all posted signage and all like laws of the city of Boston. Specifically that means, our position is that dogs are not allowed in the roller hockey rink and the tennis courts over by Porzio Park. I'm gonna share my screen here and hopefully do this okay. As you can see, here's our fair neighborhood. Dogs are again not at all allowed over in the tennis courts and the roller hockey rink. Dogs are also not allowed at all in Pierce Park. As a dog owner myself, I do want to let people know, if you weren't aware, Brophy Park does allow dogs. However, dogs are supposed to be leashed. There's also a great area that's a little bit less trafficked, slightly outside of our neighborhood, but right along the rental car center here. That's also a great place for dogs. There's also the dog parks, the Bremen Street Dog Park up the Greenway, and also the very small dog park over by the Clipper Ship, those are dedicated dog parks. These are all places where you can bring your dog. I wanted to piggyback, and I did see on Facebook there was a little bit of talk, and I'm going to follow up with those folks about getting some community impetus behind a dog park. And I just wanted, again, to sort of spark that conversation. I also wanted to piggyback off some of the work that Mary Cole, who's a former board member and longtime resident here, has done in the past regarding this. And I want to kind of piggyback a little off of a lot of the heavy lifting that she's done already. There are two potential options that Mary's identified, and I certainly agree with all of her previous findings that I wanted to sort of put forward for discussion. One of which is up here in the Porzio Park area by sort of the top lot by the playground area. The other is over here by the shipyard, by where this is obviously a summertime picture, but where they store all the boats in the wintertime, right along here on Marginal Street. Basically, there's kind of lay out what the deal is with each. Over here, the area in Porzio Park, there could be space for a potential dog park. However, that is city property. We would be responsible for basically doing the initial fundraising and the ongoing maintenance of that property. So the city would be willing to talk to us about putting in a dog park there, but we would be responsible for its continued upkeep and maintenance, which, you know, it's a good idea. I think everybody can get behind it, but that sort of ongoing, hey, we need to maintain this in the future, that might be difficult. Whereas over here in the shipyard, you know, we're all aware that the shipyard is undergoing a bunch of changes. The shipyard, without going too deep into the weeds, has a lot of responsibilities vis-a-vis their location right next to the water, what they owe the community in terms of public space and usage of public space and things like that. And Mary in the past has identified a potential area around here that has been identified for sort of a public usage area when the shipyard does their redevelopment. And this is perhaps somewhere where we could leverage ourselves as a board and as a community and try to get the shipyard, you know, instead of benign park, of which we obviously have a very large park right next to it, or some sort of just open public space. Maybe we can get them to build sort of a smallish enclosed dog park, a la what they have over on the Clipper ship. And that would provide an area for the sort of the neighborhood dogs that are currently using areas that some of our neighbors might not like. I would provide a more contained area for the dogs to run around and bother fewer people. I know folks had mentioned in the past sort of the empty lot here off of Marginal. Unfortunately, this is kind of a no-go from any kind of dog park because it's adjacent to several homes, residences. And that just, the city would never build there, and it wouldn't be fair, honestly, to the adjoining residents to have a dog park literally right in their backyard. So while this is kind of a prime spot, I walk my dog on this piece of grass almost every day. Unfortunately, this is just a no-go for a proper dog park. In the interest of time, I did just want to open this up to any kind of questions, discussions. Again, this is super preliminary. I will say we all know the pace of how things move with the development in the shipyard and certainly with the city in general. This isn't going to be something that happens tomorrow. I can assure you of that, unfortunately. But I did kind of want to get the conversation starting, the ball rolling, and just kind of let the community know this is something that we are aware of and that we want to try to use our influence as a community organization to help mitigate this problem. So with that, I'd kind of open it up to any sort of questions, concerns. Okay, if you don't have any at this time, but if this is something that you're interested in helping out or you want to throw your weight behind, I will bring this up again at future meetings. But feel free to reach out to me personally. I'll put it in the chat here. It's just Tyler at jeffreyspoint.org. So if you have a dog and you're passionate about this, if you don't have a dog and you hate dogs and you're really mad that they're in the neighborhood all the time fouling up the streets, feel free to email me too. That's also helpful. But you know, I just want to let you guys know, you know, that this is something that we're working on. When the land, oh, Stephanie. I'm assuming you're talking about Porzio Park. I personally was unaware of that, and that's certainly helpful information. As it kind of stands, we thought the sort of the Porzio Park idea was going to be a non-starter anyway, because of sort of the ongoing funding commitments and things like that. Whereas I think it might be an easier lift, sort of nudging the shipyard into potentially offering a dog park as part of their sort of public space that they kind of owe us as the community. But that's definitely helpful information. I appreciate that. And thank you, Brendan. Shipyard sounds like the best option. I appreciate that. I think that's honestly going to be our easiest option. Thinking about kind of our neighborhood and where it would be located, Porzio would probably be a little bit more central, but I think that's a really good area at the end of Marginal. And again, makes the most sense. But thanks everybody. I just appreciate you sort of hearing us out on that. And again, just want to let you know we are working on it. We're aware of it. And we just kind of want everybody to get along. And hopefully by moving this forward a little bit and potentially getting another dog park in the neighborhood, we can help to do that. All right. So thanks for the time. Appreciate it. And again, feel free to reach out if you have any questions at all, or any ideas or suggestions or anything like that. I'll post more on Facebook, and the Facebook forums, and I will bring up more in future meetings about it as well.
And just to add on to what Tyler said, what he said about the city, like they would build a dog park, they will only build it if you have formed an organization that has raised money and has shown that you can raise the money to maintain the dog park and can show that you can maintain it for a longer period of time. So like that's part of the reason that we're starting this as a discussion, to find out like where are people interested, because if people aren't interested and won't be interested in terms of like actually joining an organization and being willing to like fundraise and be on a board and everything else, then it's not a good idea to like put a dog park in the community, because it's going to need to be, it's going to need to have oversight, and it's going to need to have people who are willing to be involved and stay involved. So
And I think we, with the shipyard, we might not have as many of those ongoing requirements, which I think is an advantage of the shipyard. But this is something, to Margaret's point, that's going to require community buy-in one way or the other. Because even if we go the shipyard route, we're still going to need to lean on them a little bit as neighbors to kind of get them to do this. Just as one last thing, and I meant to say this at the beginning, I apologize. Being as this is a neighborhood association meeting, I'm sure the people on here are the conscientious type anyway. But if you are a dog owner in the neighborhood, please remember to clean up after your dogs and things like that. I say this as a dog owner who only once in almost 5 years, knock on wood, I'll probably do it tomorrow morning, has been caught without a doggy bag. But clean up after your dog and remember to kind of keep them to where they're supposed to be. And we're working on providing more areas for them to have fun and have their enjoyment. So.
absolutely. Thank you so much, Tyler. I'd like to say thank you to everyone for joining us this evening. It's greatly appreciated. Again, we will have a planning and zoning meeting this month. We will be publishing the agenda for that later this week. So on the 20th of August, there will be a planning and zoning meeting. A quick reminder that there will be an election on September 9th, which, looking at my calendar here, will be the day after our next JP&A meeting, which will be on our next JP&A meeting will be on September 8th, and the election will be on September 9th, the day after. And so no matter how you will vote, we encourage you to vote. The more people that show up and vote in East Boston, the more likely our elected officials are to listen to us, because they will see that we have a large turnout in elections. With that being said, reminder that if you have any questions or need assistance, you can reach us at board@jeffreyspoint.org, and the meeting minutes and the video recording of this meeting will be available in the future at our website at www.jeffreyspoint.org. Hopefully we will see you all this weekend at either Eastie Pride or the Haines Street Block Party. Thank you so much and have a great evening. Yes, we're out on time.